Now is CTV News political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, good morning to you. So let's begin with the shutdown. A lot of people were surprised late Sunday to see Democrats joining Republicans to vote in favor of ending the shutdown. Your thoughts, and how did we get here?
Well, clearly what we saw were 8 moderate Democrats who came together and decided that they had seen enough, that 40 million Americans losing food benefits, the cancellations of flights across the country had become a bridge too far, even though there was massive momentum behind Democrats, as evidenced by the recent electoral victories that they had on Tuesday. And so now we see that they have voted to actually open the government to fund many of these vulnerable programs through the end of next year, while of course getting at least a commitment from Senate Republicans to actually bring the vote on health care subsidies to the floor. Now, it's still an open question if, in fact, the House will go along with that. But still, what we're seeing right now is the government is on a path to actually opening after a historic shutdown.
Okay, so that is definitely a good thing, and I want to talk to you in just a second about, was there a winner or a loser here? What did the shutdown accomplish in the end? But let's stick with the Democrats for just a moment, because of course there are different schools of thought around this. But Eric, some people think the Democrats caved. Others are saying no, you know, they were buoyed by those wins earlier in the week. What's your take?
Well, all of the gains that the Democrats made, seeing those victories over Tuesday, they gave all of that away with this surprise move by Senate Democrats to basically get nothing for this willingness to actually continue to keep the government shut down. The whole idea of this was to actually get subsidies to keep premiums at a lower cost for 20+ million Americans. And what they got in return was the hope that they will actually get a vote. Now, to be clear, that vote is already baked in, meaning those premiums are still going to rise for millions of Americans. So what Democrats were hoping to gain, quite frankly, they could have actually voted for this legislation last week or the week before. And so the fact that they have now basically told the voters who made clear that they wanted a party that was going to fight, the fact that they have saying that they're not going to do so, I think what we're going to see now is a brewing and very brutal civil war within the Democratic Party as to who is prepared to fight and who is not. And I think this could only get worse for Democrats as time goes forward.
Okay. In terms of seeing services resume, federal employees get back to work, when might that happen? Do you think that Trump will put a stamp of approval on this bill?
Well, first, we see that basically the Senate voted yesterday to actually bring the CR, the continuing resolution, to the Senate for a vote. That is expected to take place any moment. And of course, now it's incumbent upon Speaker Mike Johnson to actually convene the House to then take up the bill for a vote. And of course, we know that there are some Republicans who might not support this legislation, notably Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so it's unclear where that will stand. But even if they do actually bring this to the floor for a vote, we also know that Speaker Johnson then has to swear in that Democrat from Arizona, right, who could then see the release of the Epstein files. So we basically go from one crisis to potentially another that could be politically problematic for Donald Trump and other Republicans.
Okay, lastly, I have to ask you about Donald Trump pardoning Rudy Giuliani. Why do you think he did that?
Well, look, Rudy Giuliani has experienced tremendous hardship financially. We even know that Donald Trump held a fundraiser for Rudy Giuliani, even as he was struggling with paying legal bills for many of these cases surrounding January 6th. And so now this pardon comes at a time when Giuliani desperately needed it. But also what we see is Donald Trump continuing that process of reshaping the narrative on January 6th, not only with the pardon for Giuliani, but of course, many others who had been swept up in that legal dragnet, including the president and others. And now we see Donald Trump attempting to, again, rewrite the narrative with these unconditional pardons, at least at the federal level, for many, including his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows.
Eric, thank you so much. Eric Ham joining us this morning. Appreciate all of that.